Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Apologies for yesterday, but we had quite a busy day off the desk. I couldn't get to do the podcast. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Strong growth performance in the Euro area, Japan, China, and the United States. This is the latest World Economic Update from the IMF. That link is actually the first link on rich wrap-ups. This is interesting. US 2-year yield has topped 2.4%. The 2-year Treasury Bund spread is at a 28-year high, which is quite extraordinary when you consider how poorly the dollar has actually performed. Home thoughts, I like this photograph, a sleep out on the lake shore with nomad Tanzania. Walked out in the late afternoon to find super beds waiting. Then Godfrey Mambo from Standard Chartered and a friend of mine on Twitter said, mountains also remind us that we are a fleeting presence on this earth. Two hikers hardly noticeable heading down Kilimanjaro. He's climbed it, and that must be a photograph he's taken. This is another photograph that I like, Destination TZ, trekking the Kilimanjaro Mountain, Africa's highest peak. Alex Eakins. Alison Hargreaves became the first woman to scale Mount Everest alone, sent a radio message to her children, to Tom and Kate, my dear children, I am on the highest point of the world, and I love you dearly. It's an incredible thing to be able to say to your children. Political reflections, the Commonwealth Secretary General, speaking at the opening session this morning, said that the Commonwealth is 1/3 of humanity. I, for one, am optimistic about this pivot towards the Commonwealth, and I hope that it works significantly and substantively. Mike Pompeo, the CIA chief, apparently met secretly with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Unexpected clandestine meeting would mark the highest level US contact with North Korea since the year 2000. We have had direct talks at extremely high levels, Mr. Trump said from Florida, where he's hosting Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Xi Jinping, according to Javier Espinosa, is due to visit North Korea. Asia Times is saying why the Trump-Kim talks will fail. If US President Donald Trump is to be believed, North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, may be interested in giving up his nuclear arsenal. Significantly, the North Korean public has not been officially informed that talks could take place, indication that Kim is playing to the international community and not domestic audiences. For years and through many administrations, everyone said the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula was not even a small possibility, Trump tweeted. Now there is a good chance Kim Jong-un will do what is right for his people and for humanity. Look forward to our meeting. But bear in mind, this has been a negotiating tactic of the Mount Pektu bloodline for a number of years. And in my view, as I wrote in September last year, it is entirely unlikely, in particular, that the West has anything to offer the Koreans or the Chinese, and in the case of the Chinese, anything that will compensate them for the loss of their hinterland, their buffer, and their instrument of attack. But more importantly, particularly post-Syria, and front and center in Kim's mind, must be the image of Saddam Hussein being hung by his neck, and of Muammar Gaddafi meeting his death after having been sodomized with a bottle. And therefore, when you view things from Kim the Rocket Man's perspective, you might appreciate that far from being illogical, he is in fact being ruthlessly logical. And if you haven't watched this North Korea TV documentary of his visit to China, it's a real eye-opener. That link is on the website as well. In September, I also wrote about the rocket, and I was quoting a screaming comes across the sky, Gravity's Rainbow 1973 novel, which is about the design, production and dispatch of V-2 rockets by the German military. And in it, and I love this quotation, I think I've quoted it numerous times, it is a curve each of them feels. Unmistakably, it is the parabola. They must have guessed, once or twice guessed, and refused to believe that everything always collectively had been moving toward that purified shape latent in the sky, that shape of no surprise, no second chance, no return. And then in November 2010, I also wrote a piece about the Hermit Kingdom. Far away in distant lands lies the Hermit Kingdom. They've all had tiny little hands like the elves and the shoemaker. Returning to my weekend piece about the attack on Syria, I said, let's be frank, these tomahawks fired at will over Syria have put Putin in a corner. His entire political raison d'etre has been framed as a strongman. I was saying it's a neat twist that Trump is the US president that has taken Putin to a put up or shut up moment, but the view is that it was actually quite choreographed. In his book from the year 2000, Putin briefly tells a story of the first time he learned the meaning of the word cornered. There, on that stair landing, I got a quick and lasting lesson in the meaning of the word cornered. There were hordes of rats in the front entryway. My friends and I used to chase them around with sticks. Once I spotted a huge rat and pursued it down the hall until I drove it into a corner. It had nowhere to run, and suddenly it lashed around and threw itself at me. I was surprised and frightened. Now the rat was chasing me. It jumped across the landing and down the stairs. Luckily, I was a little faster and managed to slam the door and shut in its nose. And I was saying that, Ben Bernanke said about gold, why do people hold it as protection against what we call tail risks, really, really bad outcomes? And essentially gold and crude oil are being lifted by those tail risks. Very interesting comparison from Charlie Robertson at Renaissance. He tweets, "You've come a long way, baby," looking at Russian GDP 1998 and now today. Of course, Nikki Haley said, when our president draws a red line, our president enforces a red line. However, she got apparently ahead of the curve, according to Larry Kudlow, with regard to sanctions on Russia. Look at this as the tunnel system in Ghouta, which was painstakingly built because the Syrian capital was the ultimate prize. Indeed, 2 visits to China by an Indian Prime Minister within the space of a month would signify a significant breakthrough in high-level India-China dialogue. This is Asia Times. But make no mistake, it's Xi Jinping who has Narendra Modi surrounded from the plateau to Gwadar to the Hambantota port. As I've already said, they've established control over the South China Sea, but though there's some friction right now between China and Taiwan. I was saying Sri Lanka, which had gorged on Chinese debt, has had to disgorge the Hambantota port to China. Of course, we know that they've leased the Gwadar port for 43 years. And recently we saw them formally open a military facility in Djibouti. Mohammad Javad Zarif and his aides are due in New York to attend a UN conference. That should be interesting. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar not able to make more headway. 123.62. Dollar index still below 90 at 89.66. Japanese yen 107.25. Swiss franc 0.9680. The pound, that's had a bit of a tumble after a stunning run to a post-Brexit high, 141.95, down nearly a full figure. The Australian dollar 0.7751. India rupee 65.705, South Korean won 1067.82, the Rial 340.89, the Egyptian pound 17.7099, and the rand just above 12 at 1202.87. Dollar index, this is a 3-month chart, 88 stop remains my position. Sterling, have a look at this chart from Gadfly, though we've subsequently fallen back. When I walked in this morning, we were at 142.81. We're now at 141.97. This is a euro dollar chart. I still think 125.60 is an impossible hurdle, and I think we head towards 121. Bitcoin holding above 8,000. This is a chart from RAF, and it's self-explanatory. Commodity markets, gold 1346, and it's really being underpinned. It's not running away, but it's being underpinned by the geopolitical situation. Crude oil trading strong again, up at $67 in New York. As I wrote over the weekend, President Trump has flipped Obama's strategy on its head. He's been lifting the price of crude oil to ease the crown prince into his position as king. Abraj offers to step down as manager of the $1 billion healthcare fund. The gentleman who ran that fund actually met in Dubai a couple of years ago, I think it was. Abraj has offered to resign as manager of its $1 billion healthcare fund as the emerging markets private equity company deals with investors angry about alleged misuse of their money. The plan seeks to swap Dubai-based Abraj with an interim manager, then a permanent replacement. People involved in the discussion said other options include turning the fund into a company or a self-governing fund. Abraj deployed $8 billion in its 15-year history, came under fire during the healthcare fund's annual general meeting with investors in London earlier this month. The meeting went badly. There was shouting. It's still uncertain how this will play out, and I think that's the case. And, these sorts of situations can hit a death spiral quite quickly. Of course, they bought Java coffee shops for about $103 million in between the two elections we had here last year. Quite a statement, in fact. Africa GDP forecast. This is the latest forecast for the continent from the IMF. They've upgraded Nigeria, they've upgraded South Africa, and that's half of South Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa's GDP. Interesting article I came across where it said the contemporary Horn of Africa is eerily similar in a structural sense to the pre-World War Balkans. That's a good point. Cameroon is a country with a ghost captain at the helm, a Titanic knocking into one iceberg after another. This is African arguments. Malawi's Minister of Finance, Gudan Gondwe, who's 82 years old, said running a government is not for babies. Malawi's external debt rose 11% in 2017 from a year earlier to reach $2.06 billion, the highest since at least 1984. Ethiopia pips Ghana as the fastest growing African economy, according to the IMF. Ghana has lost its mantle as the African economy likely to grow the quickest this year to Ethiopia, which has held a position for most of the past decade. IMF increased its forecast for expansion in sub-Saharan Africa to 3.4% this year, 3.7% the next, as the challenging outlook in commodity exporters gradually improves. Nigeria will grow 2.1%, while South Africa will expand 1.5%, more than 0.9% prediction 3 months ago. I'm very bullish around FOSA. Just heard from the Mauritius Prime Minister that the country has not had a recession in 37 years, which he thinks may be the longest growth run in the world. Burundi forces kill perceived regime opponents. This is Human Rights Watch. We've got to watch developments carefully there. Zambia's finance ministry maintains that its external debt was $8.7 billion end of 2017, even as some officials privately say the country's total debt could amount to as much as $25 billion. South African all shares down 4.5% so far this year. I can't get over this chap who keeps calling his media business in South Africa a multi-sided platform technology. And this is Iqbal Sourve. Dollar versus Rand just trading above 12. I think we're headed towards 11 before the end of the year. Nigerian all-share up 6.66% this year. Coalition of Nigerian forces are now shooting us with live bullets. This is the sheer demonstration that's been put down a number of times, quite brutally by the government. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 32.99% this year. Uhuru Kenyatta spoke in an interview with Christiane Amanpour of CNN. This photo is from Zioka Waiter. We'll wait for the interviewers. I haven't seen it. Kenya-focused fintech lender Tala raises $65 million to fund expansion. The announcement takes Tala's total fundraising to $105 million 3 weeks after its main competitor Branch announced a $70 million Series B equity and debt funding round that took its total to $18 million. This is a really hot space here in Kenya. And the rate cap probably helped them a great deal as well. TPS Serena Hotels reported first full year 2017 earnings per share declined 25%. Revenues year on year was down just less than 1%. Profit before income tax was actually down 17.262%. Profit for the year was up marginally, up 0.243%. Earnings per share down 25%. Cash and cash equivalents at the end of the year 611 million versus 1.42 billion. They said the group successfully traversed through a challenging business landscape for the tourism industry in East Africa, mainly caused by the ripple effect of the political uncertainty in Kenya. Despite the increasing competition arising from new market entrants, most Serena city hotels performed well. Sitting here in Nairobi, it's practically every day that you see a new opening of a city hotel. Serena Safari Circuit in Kenya and Tanzania were healthier than the corresponding periods of the past 2 years. Foreign tourism for destination Kenya in particular is expected to be more promising than 2017. Support from domestic and regional markets is expected to continue at encouraging levels during 2018. Nairobi Serena is operating at 46% of its room inventory, which is one of the problems that they've had of late. They had to refresh that particular hotel. I expect the tourism rebound to gain more traction, and I think TPS is a value proposition, notwithstanding its elevated PE. It trades at a discount to its net asset value. I haven't gone into it scientifically, but it's quite a substantial one, I suspect. This is a photograph of Hannah and my wife riding along the lake shore at Lake Elementaita, which is this incredible place they've got on the lake. It's the most beautiful destination. Hannah and I woke up at 4 in the morning. We looked up and it was just the Milky Way. It felt you could just put up your hand and touch it. This is a photograph of Serena Hotels in Mombasa on the Indian Ocean. There's a link also for an interview I did with Mahmoud Jan Mohammed, who's the managing director of Serena. It was done a while ago, but I think his points are valid. Overall, I think this is a share to pick up on any dips. Nation Media have reported full year results, but we haven't seen the actual NSE report. But I picked up some tweets. The exit of 8 columnists won't affect circulation. They're not as important as they think they are. There's a lot of talent out there. I'd agree with the Nation Media chairman, Wilfred Kiboro, and at times they really look as if they're working as a concert party. Dr. Wilfred Kiboro, Nation Media Group is not on sale to anyone. Ignore the rumours on social media. Amount of debt the government owes is 700 million shillings. That's not helpful. Our digital footprint in terms of reach grew by 24% between March and 2017 and March 2018. They've implemented a multi-channel publishing system, putting in an investment of 150 million shillings. The share price has fallen over a 5-year period, but it looks to me a value proposition at the moment. BOC Kenya reported full-year earnings per share declined 68.779%. Profit before tax slumped 56.151%. Profit for the year down 68.827%. Earnings per share down 68.779%. They are paying a final dividend of 3 shillings a share versus an EPS of 2 shillings and 2 cents. Revenue for the year at 967.6 million was down 10% compared to the previous year due to the loss of a major public sector hospital tender occasioned by the importation of medical oxygen, which depressed demand occasioned by the importation of medical oxygen. They also said depressed demand in a constrained credit environment and reduced economic activity in welding and fabrication during the extended period of the national elections. Profit after tax decreased by 56% due to a once-off credit in the prior year. And they're talking about increased debtor provisioning. Counterintuitively, this lower earnings run rate looks to me like a new normal. Nairobi all share up 9.14%. We've come off some frothy highs in the last few sessions, but I remain bullish about the market. National Oil Company will dual list on both the NSE and the London Stock Exchange. President Kenyatta. NSE 20 up 1.59% this year. Thank you for stopping by as always.